Hello citizens and UEMC miners, Rockseeker here for the series of video on exploration and mining. And for those who watched my previous video with 3.0 coming out, I decided to finally get a nice joystick, and I got myself a set of Trustmaster T16000m and a throttle. And so in the previous video I showed you how to install the driver and make sure that everything works fine, and in this video I'm going to show you how to install the target software in order to basically configure all of this. So if you remember, you basically on the website here you could download the last time we used the driver, and this time we're going to go and use the software here. So you download the software, you install the software, and again you make sure after you install the software, when you start the software, make sure that your joystick are connected and working properly. And I showed you in the previous video how to check that everything works fine. So once you start the software, it's basically going to look like this. So disregard this configuration basically, but basically that's what you have. It discovers, it knows that what you have connected is those different joysticks. So first thing, in the documentation they tell you, you go and first thing you do, you click on Fly Now and do add and blah 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 with working directory and Star Citizen. So you know what? You don't need that. So what you really need is to start a new configuration. It's already done here, but I'm not going to go in the one I made. I'm going to start from scratch and show you. So basically, let's call it custom for YouTube. How about that? Oops. You see, it's all should look at what I'm typing. You see, I don't know typing, so I still do with the fingers. And sorry. Anyway, so custom. Now that work. Oops. Custom for YouTube. Oh, that's live for you. Okay, so you leave it as basic. They say in the manual that you can go and have an advanced configuration, but you know what? You can configure everything as basic. You don't need advanced. We don't need to go in the config file and edit the config file and so on. Some people did video on that. You don't need that. Honestly, everything can be done inside the target command center GUI. And it's much simpler because whenever you go back and edit something, it overwrites the file. And if you started editing the file, then it screws up everything and makes things complex. So here, that's the default location for saving the configuration. That's fine. We click OK. So first thing you're being asked is basically, because you don't have to have the devices, the joystick connected in order to make a configuration for them. But it shows you what you have connected here, and we'll basically pick all of the devices that we have, the two joystick and the throttle. Basically, if I scroll up here, you have the right one and the one that you flip the switch underneath to say that's the left one. And next, here you go. Okay. So basically all of your three devices are there with the default axis on them. So basically if you look at this one, you have, if you go here, that's the x-axis, y-axis, rudder, and throttle. So what are those here? Those are the DirectX basically axis that the Star Citizen game or any game will use in order as the input device. And what you do is you can decide to map it basically, sorry, let me rephrase that. The DirectX axis are to the right here, and on the left is what Trustmaster defined, basically that one is joy X, that one is joy Y, that one is defined as rudder, and that one is Trustmaster. And right now, as you see, the default mapping for like most joystick if not all joystick, is the x-axis of the joystick is mapped to the DirectX x-axis, because that's a translation axis. Same thing for the y, and the z is actually, it's not z, it's z rotation, but it's not an axis of movement, but an axis of rotation. And here the thruster here that you have on the joystick is mapped to the slider. And same thing here, and at the bottom you have more than that, because you have the throttle, but it also thinks that you have the rudder there also. So even though I don't have any, that would be under the same setting. So okay, one thing to understand is what the target software does. It takes those three joysticks or three input device, the two joystick and the throttle, and emulates, once you finish your configure and run the configuration, it emulates one combined virtual joystick. And you have, it's basically a big virtual joystick with two handles on it and one thruster. So what you have to do, you have to understand that under DirectX, there's 8 axes of freedom only, and there's 32 buttons. So right now we have way too much input. Here there's 4 on this one, 4 on that one, that's 8, plus here we have another 8. So basically that's 16 input. We can only have 8 configured under DirectX. We want the right joystick, which is this one, to stay as is, as the X, Y, and rotation to stay the default, so that whatever is mapped in Star Citizen on it stays the same. So what you do is you keep them and you put none to the small thruster here, because we don't want this one to be active. We want to move this one over somewhere else. So okay, here the left joystick, these 3 DirectX axes are already used by the right joystick. So what you have to do is map them to 3 other DirectX axes, which are, in this case, we'll use the X rotation, Y rotation, and Z translation. It doesn't matter that they're not actual rotation. It just means that the gradation between 0 to 100% of usage will be mapped to those DirectX axes. So in game, it's going to make sense. There's not going to be an overlap. So now we have 6 different axes. 6, I'm going to put this one to none here because I don't want to use that one either. So already have 6 axes of DirectX being mapped to my 2 virtual joystick out of this one big virtual joystick. And so now I have only 2 axes remaining. So I want to use, sorry, I'm going to go on this one, sorry, this one. I want this one, which is really the thruster. I'll map this one to that's the throttle. I'll map this one to the throttle. And the other one, if you remember in my configuration, what I call the slide, I'm going to want to map this one as afterburner and space brake. So I'm going to, those call them the DirectX slider. And everything else, it's important, you put them to none. Okay, here, put that to none, put that to none, put that to none, and put that to none. Why is that important? Because as I said earlier, I repeat myself, but basically there's only 8 axes of freedom inside DirectX. So the 3 primary ones, the 3 others for X, Y, Z, and the remaining 2 for the throttle and slider that are mapped there. If you have rudders, well, you're going to have to decide to sacrifice one of those and map it to the rudders or whatever function you want of them. So once this is done, then we're all set. We click next, and now that's where basically, sorry, let's come back. One more thing here to show you. That's also here where X in our case is going to be basically the yaw, the pitch, and so on. Let me bring back my image. Here we see my image. Basically, yeah, so the right one is the pitch, the yaw, and the roll, and the other one will be the different strafing. So if I go back to the software, where's the software again? Blah, 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 here it is. So this one, that's fine. If you click on the small arrow here, it shows you the behavior of that axis. I leave it as is. This one also, and rotation. The rotation, I find that it's a bit too aggressive. So one thing I like to do is reduce a bit. So basically here, just by 1, put it to -1. These are integer, you cannot put fraction. Just so that when I basically use the z-axis to roll, it doesn't roll as fast. So I find it a bit better in game. So that's one setting to do. The other setting is with respect to the strafing. And if you go to strafe, this one, people mention that it's good to have a bit of a dead zone in the middle, and that can be done in the center. So that's where you go here and you say, I'm gonna put, some people suggest all the way to 30. I've seen a video about that, but I personally prefer just 5. 5 is good enough for the X, and 5 for the Y. Just enough that if once I start going to the left, it doesn't, I have a 5% margin of error in my alignment for the left and right or the top and down. But if I want to go a bit in diagonal, as soon as I go a bit beyond 5%, it's going to start acting, going in diagonal. So that's it for this. And the rest, basically, I leave as is from 0 to 100% for, here. For the throttle and the slider, I leave it also 0 to 100%. So next, here, that's where you end up, where you can basically override some of the different function and button, and that's where you program your joystick. And you know what? I see the time. I'm already 12 minutes in. So I'm going to finish the configuration of those Thrustmaster joysticks and throttle in my next video. So till then, take care, have fun, and see you in the verse.